What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Tuesday, August 11th, 2026, and I have some breaking news to share with you guys. Right now it is 16:14 Eastern Time here in the United States, and I wanted to update you guys with all the latest information that I have about Iran and Europe and domestic stuff here in the US. So before I get into all of that, I want to just show you what we have going on right now in the air over the US and Europe. So we currently have Air Force One leaving Washington, D.C., and it appears to be heading west or northwest, currently flying over southwestern Pennsylvania. We also have a U.S. military VIP plane that flew to Offutt Air Base earlier this morning, which is home of U.S. Strategic Command. And that one took off from MacDill Air Force Base, which is a very important U.S. military base in Florida near Tampa. Flew to Offutt Air Base, Strategic Command headquarters, and it is now heading east. So something is definitely brewing to have all these VIPs in the air, Air Force One and this SAM flight. And then also we currently have a large number of U.S. military cargo flights continuing to go overseas to Europe and down to the Middle East. So despite what Trump has been saying that he wants a peace deal and he's trying to negotiate with Iran, the movements of the U.S. military appear to show that we are preparing for a large military operation soon. We actually also have this very interesting aerial refueler flight, a KC-46 Pegasus, that is now landing in the Azores, which is a very secretive U.S. military base on those islands deep in the Atlantic Ocean. So typically when they move bombers overseas or fighter jets, they usually move them to the Azores first. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. And last night we had a very interesting flight of a U.S. B-52 bomber that flew from North Dakota all the way down to the Gulf of America and then all the way back up in the middle of the night, which is extremely unusual. This could be some kind of a training exercise. Very, very unusual. And we're hearing reports that some kind of an unidentified drone disrupted flights in Germany's Hanover Airport, which led to a temporary suspension of flights. So this could be another Russian drone harassing European airports. They did that a few months ago. Looks like they're starting up with that again. And Romanian naval forces on Tuesday destroyed 2 Russian Gerbera drones that were found drifting in the Black Sea close to the Neptune Deep Gas Project, according to the Romanian Ministry of Defense. A Romanian Coast Guard vessel with Army personnel investigated. Romanian Army EOD, that's Explosive Ordnance Disposal divers, destroyed the drones by controlled detonation to protect navigation and offshore work. Ukraine's military confirmed to Romanian officials the drones did not belong to them. Okay, so a clever move by the Russians, dropping these drones in the water close to a major gas exploration, a gas rig owned by Romania right off the coast of Romania. So you see what Russia's doing now? They're starting to push the limits. First, they launched a missile into Poland 2 weeks ago that blew up in a field 60 miles deep into Poland, and the Polish government refused to shoot it down due to political reasons. And by the way, a lot of people were saying, well, oh, that missile crashed in a farmer's field. Who cares? Well, actually, that's a big deal if you're a farmer. I live in farm country, and farmers will get pissed off if you even just walk through their crops, okay, let alone a missile landing and blowing up and destroying, acres and acres of very valuable crops. That would be like the equivalent of a missile hitting some kind of store in downtown of a small city. You know, it's a lot of economic damage when you blow up an entire field full of crops ready for harvesting, okay? But Russia's testing the limits, you know, launching missiles into Poland. Now they're dropping drones close to offshore gas rigs owned by Romania. Very, very concerning. And I think the next thing we're going to see is Russia is going to actually either invade the Baltics and Poland, or they may also just launch missile strikes at some Polish or NATO facilities in Poland and the Baltics that are building weapons for Ukraine, okay? And the U.S. and Iran are reportedly close to some sort of an arrangement, according to Pakistan's defense minister. And Trump said today, we are not satisfied with Iran's approach in the negotiations. So again, with the back and forth continuing, Trump 1 week saying that Iran is, you know, a good country and they want peace. Then the next week he's mad and he's getting ready to bomb. So the back and forth continuing. Trump also said the Iranians are begging for a deal and we hold all the cards. We control the Strait of Hormuz 100%. The strait is open except for a few occasional mines, which is just total nonsense. Total BS, okay? Yeah. Iran actually holds the cards, because if we held the cards, then why do we have skyrocketing fuel prices? So what he's saying is actually just nonsense. And U.S. intelligence is now claiming that Iran's top strategic priority is not its nuclear program, but actually control over the Strait of Hormuz. Military officials have reportedly warned President Trump that any operation to seize control of the Strait of Hormuz would be lengthy, costly, and deadly, with no guarantee of success. And famously last week, I think it was, Dan Kane, the chief of staff, the head general, top military advisor to the president, told Trump that basically that it would be a tough slog if we tried to take control of the Strait of Hormuz, which I beg to differ, but, you know, I'm not a seasoned military general, so what do I know? But we definitely have the capability to do it. And the Secret Service has deployed air defenses in President Trump's New Jersey golf club due to concerns over Iranian drone and missile attacks. Photos and video from Trump National Golf Club in Bedminster, New Jersey show a U.S. Army Avenger short-range air defense system, which is basically just Humvee-mounted Stinger missiles, and an AM MPQ-64 Sentinel radar positioned behind concertina wire near the course during the LIV Golf Bedminster tournament. The White House confirmed the photo's authenticity. The same day, NORAD F-16s intercepted 2 general aviation aircraft that violated the temporary flight restriction over the area. And this update was sponsored by MyPatriot Supply. Guys, MyPatriot Supply is doing a major sale on their 4-week emergency food supplies. And to get the deal, you got to use the link preparewithNYPrepper.com. The link is in the description down below. But you're going to get 2 4-week emergency food supplies for $416. That's 2 months of emergency food for $400. Where are you going to find a deal like that? This is freeze-dried food, has a 25-year shelf life, packed in 4 rugged, watertight buckets that don't take up a lot of space. So even if you live in a tiny apartment, you can still prep and have 2 months of food for just $400. Use the link preparewithNYPrepper.com to get the deal, and the link is in the description below this video. And we have some very interesting news coming out of Turkey about Trump. So apparently Trump utilized a decoy operation to depart Turkey following a credible Iranian assassination threat. switching from the public-facing Air Force One to a smaller C-32A plane. The security operation involved transporting Trump via an elevated catering truck to evade potential threats, as his primary Boeing 747-8 lacked essential anti-missile defense system. Trump initially boarded the Boeing 747 in front of cameras at Ankara Esenboga Airport before being covertly transported to the smaller C-32A. The 747 then departed carrying journalists and White House staff as a decoy, while Trump and Secretary of War Hegseth flew to Britain. Trump's C-32A flew under the nondescript military call sign RCH-18, with systems that allow the aircraft to be publicly tracked were switched off. Meanwhile, the decoy 747 used the AF-1 call sign despite Trump not being on board. And they actually have video footage of this whole thing happening. It's pretty crazy. So he literally boarded a box truck. Okay, first he went on Air Force One. Then the catering truck pulled into Air Force One to make it look like they were loading the plane. And then Trump actually went onto that truck, you know, just a small box truck. And then that box truck went to the other plane and transported Trump to the other plane, while just journalists stayed on Air Force One. Very, very interesting. So check this video out. It's pretty cool. So you can see the catering truck right there. Okay, that white box truck pulling towards Air Force One. And I guess that's where Trump exits onto the box truck. Very interesting. And the advisor to Iran's chief negotiator and parliament said Iran's conditions remain unchanged. $300 billion in compensation, release of frozen assets, and withdrawal of U.S. forces. Until then, the strait stays closed. Wow. Okay, so they're not softening their stance at all. And he also said Trump will not reach an agreement with us. We will accompany him until his term ends. So basically, Iran saying, the advisor to Iran's chief negotiator Galibov said that Iran is basically going to drag it out until Trump leaves office. They're going to play him for a fool. And that's what they've been doing. And Syria's fourth criminal court in Damascus sentenced ousted President Bashar al-Assad and his brother Mar al-Assad to death in absentia today. We know that they're in Russia now, convicting both of premeditated murder, torture, and crimes against humanity during the 14-year civil war. Wow, so tough stance against Assad by the new government. And earlier today, CENTCOM forces disabled the steering gear of a Panama ship, the MV Villanova, as the cargo vessel attempted to transit the Gulf of Oman and violate the U.S. blockade against Iran by sailing towards an Iranian port. A U.S. Navy MH-60 helicopter fired 2 Hellfire missiles into the Villanova's engine room after the ship's civilian crew ignored repeated warnings from American forces. The ship is no longer transiting to Iran in violation of the U.S. blockade, which remains in full effect. Wow. And for the third night in a row, the Yemeni armed forces carried out ballistic missile and drone attacks against Saudi-backed forces. Actually, that would be the Houthis, not the Yemeni armed forces. And for the third night in a row, the Houthis carried out a ballistic missile and drone attack against Saudi-backed anti-Houthi forces in Yemen. And Persian Gulf energy producers increasingly expect Iran's control over the Strait of Hormuz to become a lasting reality, according to the Wall Street Journal. And the U.S. reached a deal to remove nuclear material from Syria in cooperation with the IAEA, Axios is reporting. The nuclear material is yellow cake, unusable for a nuclear weapon, but still dangerous if used in a dirty bomb. It is leftover material from Syria's nuclear program in Al-Kibar, destroyed in 2007 by an Israeli attack. The deal was reached to avoid a confrontation between Israel and Syria, which could have included Turkey, over the fate of the material stored in a clandestine site known as Site 99. Wow. And the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, said that Russia is preparing to mobilize hundreds of thousands of Russians this fall after holding parliament elections, which are about to start in Russia. And Ukraine has stopped reporting the total number of missiles launched during major Russian attacks as air defenses face critical interceptor shortages. The decision follows heavy strikes where non-interceptions reached record levels. Okay, so Russia's really hitting Ukraine very, very hard now that they ran out of interceptors. And Ukraine has been hitting Russia's oil and logistics very hard as well. Ukrainian drones attacked another oil refinery, this time in Orsk in Orenburg Oblast in Russia on the Kazakhstan border. And there were also reports of a large drone attack against Russia last night, with drones reportedly being spotted over Moscow. And another Russian wild berries distribution center in Voronezh completely engulfed in flames after a Ukrainian drone attack. So the wild berries is like Amazon. And Trump refused to transfer licenses to Ukraine for the production of Patriot missiles due to concerns about technology leakage to Russia, according to the UK Telegraph. And there was another oil refinery in Khabarovsk Oblast in Russia that was hit by Ukrainian drones, apparently, or some kind of sabotage attack. And the interesting thing is this refinery is on the border of China near Japan. So this is in the Russian Far East. And there was also a power plant that spontaneously caught fire in the Russian East in Irkutsk, which is in eastern Siberia, close to Mongolia. Totally insane. And at least 2,000 people have died among the confirmed cases in Congo's Ebola outbreak. That is the fastest growing on record, according to the latest government data. Wow. And we're hearing that at least 224 people are dead and 3,000 missing in the Colombia earthquake, hundreds injured, and I'm sure those numbers are going to skyrocket. And Massachusetts became the 10th state, along with Washington, D.C., to allow abortion up to the point of birth. Wow, that is disgusting and sick. But that's the latest breaking news that I have. I will be back later on tonight with another update. And until then, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps. Prepare, practice, and persevere. And this update was sponsored by EMP Shield. Guys, EMP Shield has created a special discount just for you, the listeners of the NYPrepper channel. If you go to empshield.com and use the promo code NYPrepper, you can get 15% off your entire order. And why do you need an EMP Shield? Well, this is a special device to protect your vehicle, your RV, your solar generators, your radios from an electromagnetic pulse, which could be caused by a solar flare or potentially a rogue country like North Korea detonating an electromagnetic pulse weapon over the United States that's mounted onto a satellite. So protect your vehicles, protect your RV, protect your radios, protect your generators with an EMP Shield. Use my promo code NYPrepper to get 15% off. Installation is super simple. This is a veteran-owned business, 100% American-made, and the EMP Shields have been tested by the military, okay? And free shipping is included to the entire continental United States. And the link and the promo code are in the description below this video.